Let's face it, work is sucking the life out of too many people. Stress, burnout, disengagement. We don't just tolerate it, we accept it as normal. And it's literally killing people. 120,000 a year. Let's have ourselves a pocket sized pep talk because the answer isn't to just ignore all of this. It's joy. Yes, joy. Joy is the surprising answer that actually drives productivity, retention, and profits. If you're exhausted, if you're questioning whether leadership is worth it, or if you just want your team to actually want to show up to work, you need joy. And you need to listen to this podcast.
A Pocket Sized Pep Talk, the podcast that can help energize your business and your life with a quick, inspiring message. Now, here's your host, Rob Jollis.
Today's guest, Jenn Whitmer, helps leaders with joyosity, creating positive culture with complex people. Through solving conflict, cultivating communication, and capitalizing on the uniqueness of each person, Jenn helps create empowered teams. As an international keynote speaker, consultant, podcast host, Enneagram specialist, soon-to-be published author, and joy bringer, Jenn helps organizations retain employees, increase efficiency, and develop healthy cultures so that work is a joy and organizations flourish. Usually, that means a lot of laughter. Happy to have you with us, and welcome to the show, Jenn.
Rob, I'm really excited to be here. I love the pocket sized. It just makes me happy. Pocket sized podcast.
Yes, and when you listen to them, I got some big pockets because it's one of those things that look good on paper. But as I got into the podcast, and I think you're number 452, I realized that we're going to make them peppy and pocket sized. But this Jollis guy has some large pockets because I like having long conversations with great speakers and authors like yourself. So. You had your own wake-up call, I believe. So maybe we start there. Why don't you just tell me about the moment in your work history, because I had one, that changed your trajectory?
Yeah. Oh, well, I started my journey to really joy at work when I sat on a white couch in my boss's office and got fired. Mm-hmm. So that was quite the awakening because I was in what was originally my dream job. So I was a school leader, which meant I was an assistant head of school, assistant principal type role for those of you not in education. And I'd been doing that work for 7 or 8 years and I loved it. And really my next career goal was to move on to post-secondary education and do what we call pre-service teachers, teaching at the university level. That's what I wanted. And what had happened in this dream job where we had created a positive culture that was incredibly successful by centering joy and centering student learning. And we had been recognized as a blue ribbon school and we were a private school. So they only award that to 50 a year. So it's a really big deal. And then we had a change of leader who came in and was unskilled at leading, though experienced, not skilled, and also had his own baggage and drama that he brought with him. And because of that lack of healing and lack of skill, our whole culture shifted. And what was this beautiful, thriving place turned into a place where there was gaslighting and tons of triangulated communication and gossip and siloing and overwork and unmet expectations because they were unclear expectations and lack of role clarity and all the things that cause people to be like, why the hell am I even doing this? And I just desperately thought I could fix it. As many of us do who want good things in the world. Like if I just hang on, if I persevere through adversity.
Yeah, well, because Jenn, you're right, because we're taught, don't be a quitter, never quit. So, and nobody teaches us when the right time to walk away is. So keep going there. But I could see the dilemma already.
Yes, when I had never been in an environment that was and I've had a lot of work to even be able to say this, that was toxic and borderline abusive. Like I'd never been in that before. I didn't know what it did to you as your brain, your mental state. And so I'm not behaving at my best either. So I am now contributing to the difficulty. I'm not telling people clear things because I don't have clarity, but I'm trying to figure it out. I'm trying to hide things because I don't want them to know that it's not going well in the admin team. So I'm trying to protect people over here, protect my team. Oh, it was a hot mess. So when I was fired and he eliminated my position and then rehired me for another position in the same meeting. So that's HR people whose minds are exploding right now. That's how amazing it was. And I realized that we had something amazing and now we have something that is destructive. So what happened? And because educators often solve problems by going back to school, I went back to school and got a degree in communication and culture and did another master's work and eventually left in the middle of a school year to start doing different work. I didn't know what I wanted to do at first. I didn't actually know that speaking and consulting was a job. And so then, but I had done this work to be curious and figure out, why did we have something amazing? How did we build a beautiful, thriving culture? And then how did it get destroyed? And that process of curiosity, pulling things out, is how I came to, oh, here's what we did. We had joy. Not that things were easy, not that we had endless budget. We were a small private school, not that everybody just easily got along all the time, but we centered the idea that joy is worth the pursuit and that will give us all of the other things. And then I discovered through the last 7-8 years of work, all of the rest of the data that organizational psychologists and other people who study the way people work together have already knew, and that I was like, oh, this is what we did. But it's not the center of most business places. And so when I started telling this story out in the world, I thought I had this unique, singular experience of a toxic workplace. Like it happened because I was a bad person and I didn't do what I was supposed to do and I couldn't persevere enough. And then I start telling the story and I see an audience's heads nodding, and I see people coming up to me after keynotes and being like, oh, I had this leader and this is what happened to me. And this is how long I was in therapy. And, I was like, oh, this is so common. And this can't be. And so that's when I really started on this idea and this message of, we need to put joy in the center and we need to understand what joy really is and how do we create that, because
right,
it's
let me jump
ethereal.
In. Yeah. Wow.
I know there's a lot. Sorry.
There's a lot there.
I got big pockets too.
You can always tell when two professional speakers are talking. It's a wrestling match, and I'm going to give you most of the floor here. It's just you're making so many interesting points, and one of them that you danced right over was just the fact that this profession, you didn't even know it kind of existed. Mm-hmm. I always, I'm a University of Maryland alum, and I always go back to the communications department and tell them, do you know there's a career path for many people in this school? It's the second or third biggest or best in the country. And they look at me like I got three eyes. Like, well, what do you call it? Well, but they're going to be teachers. Even corporate trainers seem to confuse them. Like, what? There's teaching in a corporation? Yeah. And we got to make more students and universities aware of this because it's a fabulous profession.
I had no idea that in one dream job, all of the experiences I built in 20 some odd years of communication in education would prepare me to have a new dream job. I had no idea. It's amazing. No.
It's some sort of secret. I actually fell into it because I was at New York Life selling insurance, and there was a trainer there, and I had done some acting, and I would have been an actor, but I was raised by a Marine, and we weren't going to have an actor in the family. So,
oh my gosh, I also was raised by a Marine and a naval officer.
Okay, so when you go, hey, I might want to be an actor. No, that's not going to be happening here. But all of a sudden I see this training specialist thing, and I had to sub for the trainer one time, and I went, oh, here it is. Here's the path. But all right, back to our program. But I just wish more people would understand that there's a fabulous profession for those who like to teach. Teaching's wonderful. And if that's your calling, go for it. But there are other forms of teaching, and some of them are actually a little bit monetarily more appealing,
Yes.
as we say. All right. And so you started talking about sort of how common this experience is. So keep going there because we seem to kind of normalize dysfunction. Like, oh, it's really we don't talk about it because isn't everybody miserable? I mean, that's the
Yes.
way of the world, right?
Right.
Wrong.
And this resignation
Hmm.
to that idea, it makes me like, it infuriates me. I feel rage
Hmm.
that we have normalized this level of dysfunction. And one of the things that when I was writing the book, you're telling people in the first chapter of a book, you're like, why are you talking about this? Like you have to prove your point a little bit. And so if we know all of these years of data show us that putting people first, putting joy in the center actually produces better, more profitable workplaces. We have this data. Why aren't we doing it? What is our problem? And I think one of the things is that, well, this is the way it's always been. This is the way that it's always been. And so there is this idea, that fallacy, that if we've always done it this way, then we should continue to do it this way. I think the other thing that we have a problem is an obsession with measurement. In the United States, in particular, in business culture, we have an obsession with measurement, and we misquote Deming all the time, where everybody says, he says, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. Except he never said that. What he did say was that there are a lot of things that are pertinent and important for managers to do that they can never be able to measure. And that's things like people skills. How do you communicate effectively? How do you control your own emotions? How do you have self-awareness? All of that is very difficult to measure. But because we have obsession with measurement, it happens. And I think the last thing well, not the last thing. The third thing that I think is a little controversial is that we have bought a lie that came in like the 60s and 70s that said the point of a business is to make profit for the shareholders. If the point of a business is to make profit for a shareholder who isn't working in the business, you're going to have a very different approach to how you treat people. Versus, I think the point of a business is to solve a problem. And if you solve a problem, people pay you for that. And we have all this data that says if you put joy in the center, people work better together. And when people work better together, they solve problems more efficiently.
Yeah.
And even like if you have joy, your team, one person has joy on your team on a regular basis, that team is 25% more productive. 25% is a big productivity boost. It's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
So I think that we've bought into this lie that feels like greed. But I don't think that's who we are.
No, we're
I don't
not.
think that's who we are. And we need that like shift that it's okay to treat people like people.
Yeah.
And I think the last thing might be the hardest to swallow is that I think we don't think we deserve joy. Like joy is extra. Like it's nice if I can get it, but I don't know if we really believe that we deserve it.
Kind of like a luxury item.
Yeah.
Like, I guess we get it, but that's only on special occasions. I have
Yes.
to earn it and I don't want to overuse it.
The
Yeah.
earning thing is
Yeah.
huge. And that's part of, in order to be worthy, I then have
Right.
to earn it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm that guy, by the way. You touched on a bunch of things. Remember, you're talking to a sales trainer. So when you talk about sort of that stubbornness, the reason why I've sales trained NASA and hostage negotiators and polygraph examiners and corporate is because they're all going after the same thing, which is fear of change. And that's
Yes.
what you were running up against. You know
Mm-hmm.
what? What you're talking about makes sense. That could be better. What if it's worse?
What if it's worse?
The devil you know versus the devil you don't know.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
so it's very common. Also, I'm going to congratulate you. I think you did it by accident, but I don't know if you know this. I am a guy who hates the word soft skills. I
Oh,
hate the two words.
ooh,
They should be eradicated. And you
I
did.
agree.
You went right around and you said people skills.
They are people
Sometimes
power skills.
yeah,
And I will
sometimes I'll
die
call
on
them,
that hill all day.
I'll be right there with you. Sometimes I call them performance skills, anything but soft skills, which so horrifically diminishes how important those skills are, which are not being taught in universities. Hard skills are. I'm 15 years on the front line of a lot of people. I help people in career transition. I'm in front of rooms of 100, 200 people sometimes. 200 people. How many in that room do you think are in that room because their hard skills failed them? They didn't add
Right.
fast enough. None. Okay.
Not
They
one.
didn't know how to fit into the team you're talking about. They didn't know
Exactly.
how to be wrong when they actually thought they were right. They didn't
Hmm.
know how to connect with other people. It's like watching Survivor on CBS. They
Yes.
didn't know how to become part of the tribe.
Yes, absolutely. It's huge. And that contributes to the way people feel at work.
Right.
So I'm going to, I think it's 86%. Um, yes, it's 86% of people experience workplace anxiety on a regular basis.
Hmm.
And it's
Wow.
higher in other industries such as technology, so like IT and healthcare, like huge. It's higher. If on average, 86% of us, like out of 10 people, like kind of nine, I
Hmm.
don't think that's okay.
No.
And of those people, three-quarters of them say it impacts their home life. So not only are you getting the Sunday scaries, not only are you having that, like, oh, I don't know if I can tell my boss this, or I'm overworked and, or this person just sends me over, like whatever, all of those things that happen because we don't know how to get along at work. Then you bring home to your kid when they're giving you their permission slip, or your spouse says something to you and you lose it on them because they're the safe place, but you don't want to treat them like that, but you don't have anywhere to put it because you haven't been taught the people power skills to not only help you communicate effectively with other people, but also to manage yourself. And that's where the power is.
Yeah. Wow. I love the topic. It's one of the reasons why I want to get you on the show. I don't think we talk about it enough. It's funny. I've got only two signs on my desk, and I'm looking at them right now. And although we're doing a podcast, I'm going to hold them up to you, and I'll just read them. One is the stone that says "Never, never quit." Okay, so it's in case I forget, I get to watch it as a stone every day. And
Oh,
the
wait.
other, the other is a little more hopeful. The other is we weren't put on this earth to make a living. We were put on this earth to make a difference. And I keep an eye on that too. And I think that falls more into the joy category. I tell people, they ask me how work's going. Well, we're sourcing gigs, this and that. But I tell them I found fabulous ways to not make money. Really, there's some
I feel that.
meaningful ways. And but I think it's just sort of the combination of both. But this took me, decades to sort of be okay with it.
Yeah.
And because early on, I was not okay with it. I was only okay with how much money can I generate? Of course, how much time will I be away from my family while I'm doing it?
Mm-hmm.
And so on. So it's tough. I want to backtrack just for a second. Uh, when you got sort of reassigned and you realize, okay, this is somebody I can't really work with.
Mm-hmm.
Was there a moment in truth? Because I left Xerox 32 years ago and I left on my own terms.
Mm.
Uh, but there was sort of a moment of truth for me. I'm just curious, was there a moment where you went, yeah, it's time?
Yeah. There was. So, and it wasn't I don't want to say that it was like it wasn't an instant process. I love Andy Grammer has this song that talks about if it's not all right, then it's not the end. And so you have to turn the page, pick up your pen, write a new story. I love that. That is not an instant process.
Mhm.
And so this was a sitting on that ridiculous white couch, because who has a white couch in a school? Anyway, sat on that white couch and got fired and rehired with this weird, I called it the banishment to Elba position, because I wasn't allowed on campus. Like it was a whole hot mess of insanity. And then I was still working on this project, and he had made promises of his change, like of what he was going to do. And I kind of had those shaky promises and my own undying optimism that we were going to get through this. And over time, in a surprise to no one, he didn't actually keep those promises, because we've had 6-7 years of data at this point saying that probably wasn't going to happen. And then there was a Christmas party that happened actually in January because of some weather things. And so we're at a Christmas party in January, and there was like some chatter next to me. And I just turned to one of my friends and said, "Hey, what are you talking about?" And she told me a story about something that the leader had done that was exacerbating some of the things that I was working on. And it lacked so much integrity that I was like, I can't anymore. I cannot. I have to leave. Because it was such a breach of my own values. And in that process, I had to find something new. But I was going to leave without having anything new, and without going into the entire long story, because,
Right.
our pockets are only so large. In that process, I started sharing my story with the board, with some other staff members, and they had no idea. And it sort of began a series of events that helped the school remove that leader, start to heal, place in some new. So the school today is a different place, but is more aligned to the mission of where it was when I was there. And it's taken a while for them to get there too. So I personally had to decide, okay, this is the moment I have to get out, even though I couldn't like walk into the office straight out of that meeting and quit.
Right.
It had to take some time,
Right.
but it also took the organization some time to heal as well. It's
Right.
not instant.
Right.
And from the research, it's debatable depending on who you read, but at minimum, it takes about 18 months after a traumatic workplace experience to recover in the workplace. That's a
Wow.
long time.
Yeah.
It's a long time.
How long ago did you leave?
I left in 2018.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's interesting. For me, I kept telling people I was all right, but every time they would ask me about the story, you could feel the temperature change.
Mm-hmm.
And particularly when one individual's name was used.
Yeah.
And I knew I was healed and over it when I could bring up when I could jump into the conversation, and no matter how mentally I wanted to say I was okay, I could feel there was, no temperature change,
Yes.
no issue. I didn't have to put on a yellow smile while I was telling you, I'm telling you, I'm okay. I'm okay.
It's
Uh,
really fun.
I was okay. But to your point, I think it took at least a couple of years. I thought it took a couple months because I kept telling everybody I was okay.
Yeah,
But down deep, it's a wound.
it is a wound.
Yeah, we don't talk about that. It's
Yeah.
a different form of abuse in a sense that
Mm-hmm.
goes on in companies. Just the school system. I'm curious because at Xerox, for instance, there was a system in place where we were polled a couple of times a year, independently, outside, supposedly a manager, anonymous, etc. And there was a system in place. They had to get a certain rating. If they didn't get high enough, you're sent someplace else, or you have to leave the company, or. But it wasn't a perfect science. Was there anything like that in place where you were?
Yeah, not in that role. No.
Right.
We didn't have an HR department, so
Hmm.
that's, not that
That'll do it.
HR is, I love HR people, but HR has conflicting interests, and most HR professionals will tell you that. And so we didn't have that. And I followed all the procedures we had, like on
Mhm.
my stellar performance reviews.
Yeah.
There's a section that's like, is there anything I can do? Like
Right.
asking from the leader. And so I would say, hey, I'm struggling with these things that are making it hard for me to do my job. And
Right.
repeatedly, I had a fellow cohort where the two of us were like the academic team, and we would go and it's like, hey, we're struggling with this. This is a problem. But because who I like to be, I've never wanted to be a gossip. I've had like, I don't like that. And so I wasn't telling other people. So
Right.
I didn't know until there was an experience where the entire team watched something happen in front of an outside event, an outside body. We watched our leader do something that we all were like, oh my word. And that is when we finally were like, oh, this isn't just happening to me. That siloing that happens
Yeah.
is what a toxic leader will do because they're trying to protect themselves. And at the same time, I say that, I have so much empathy for him because this is how he learned it. And he never got the skills, the leadership training to do it
Right.
any differently. And
Right.
that's what perpetuates this problem in other places. It's because if we don't train people on what does it look like to build healthy relationships, what does it look like to work well together, this problem will perpetuate because that's all you know. And especially when you feel stress, you revert back to the things that you're like, this feels safe. Even if it doesn't particularly work, that feels safe. Back to that idea of change. What if this doesn't work?
Yeah.
And so that was how that process went. And it's a weird process because it wasn't formalized or
Yeah.
codified.
Yeah. Well, and you've touched on another kind of Robism here because I I'm always shocked at how poorly we train managers. Usually somebody sells a widget, moves a widget, handles a widget faster or better, and they go, well, now you're going to manage people who handle and hold widgets. And but who's really teaching? One of my hot subjects, for instance, is recognition. Just the simple experience of recognizing a human being, which there's some staggering numbers. They change from time to time. Staggering numbers of how many people will leave a company simply because they felt a lack of recognition.
Yeah.
And you want to point the finger at the manager and go, "Don't you understand? There's a process in place that not everybody wants more money. It's not going to haunt you come performance review." But speaker to speaker, trainer to trainer, really, this isn't a people problem. It's a process problem.
Absolutely.
Who's training them?
Who's training them? Well, just this week, Gallup put out like the state of work report that they do every year. So this is the 25 report. If you're listening to this, in 5 years. But they, the group of people in the workplace that are experiencing the biggest drop in well-being is managers. It's managers. And it's because they're smushed. They've got CEOs and like head leadership team telling them what to do. And then they're trying to manage people and they haven't been trained. And so Gallup, I was digging into the report and I was like, yes, clapping at their report that the thing that solves this problem of manager well-being is manager and leadership training. And that can increase well-being and performance by, get this, 50%. If you train. I mean, that kind of ROI is insane. If you said paint it blue and 50% or more of your customers will buy it, every business would do it. But for some reason, we struggle with this idea of training managers and leaders. And it is such a key issue in the workplace. And it is if your manager is experiencing a drop in well-being, that is going to trickle down to other people, or they're just going to check out. Like their engagement is going to be gone, which hurts your productivity, which hurts your profit, and all the other things that we do love to measure and are important. Don't get me wrong. They are important. We're just putting the wrong solution into that recipe. We need better processes that help us formalize and uphold the good things that we want to do in the workplace.
You know what else? And this was over 30 years ago, I thought Xerox was ahead of its time. Not everybody should be a manager. And for some reason, we sort of look at it as, well, if you're doing your job well, you'll soon be the manager. And what Xerox did that was very innovative back in the 80s and into the 90s, they had a program and they were very kind of secretive about it. It was a program that if the manager thought you were on a track to become a manager, then you went to this wonderful program. That's what we knew about it. It was some sort of management prep. But what it was 3.5 days, lots of case studies, things like that. But they were trying to actually put you in scenarios to see whether this is really right for you. Nobody does that. You're just tapped and you're told you're going to be a manager, and who's going to turn that down? And so I guess I'll be a good one. And we kept running into these case studies where they coincidentally kind of came down to, do you protect the corporation or do you protect this individual who's been one of the nicest people you've ever met in your life and was there for you on day one and just made this one mistake and will never make it again. And I kept going to door number 2. I go, I'm protecting the individual. If they did all that, and they were going, no, again, no, this is about the corporation. And, but it was smart because I remember leaving that program thinking, and we've talked about it, I don't think I want to be a manager. I'm not management material. So I found a different career path.
Yes.
I was a supervisor, things like that. But that program taught me that management wasn't right for me. And that's a hell of a program as far as I'm concerned.
That is such a great understanding of this isn't for me.
Right.
Like sometimes I think we have this idea that we should be able to do everything, which is just ludicrous.
Yeah.
But the other problem we have is that our corporate culture says that the way that you move up, the way that you earn more money over time is by managing people. I was doing a speaking event in front of a group of about 100 CEOs and HR people. It's kind of a mix of high leadership and CHROs. And making the case that if you have the power in your organization to change your payment structure, so it's not only rewarding people who want to lead and manage well, but it's also rewarding subject matter experts and individual contributors who are highly skilled at what they do, you will have better managers, because the people who don't want to manage, that's not the thing that they're skilled at, will opt out of management because they see another way to have career success doing what they love to do.
Right.
And it's such an important concept of leadership and management are different skills. They're a different skill. Now, I think everybody needs to lead themselves. You can't lead anybody else until you've led yourself first. But when it starts to come to leading other people, if that doesn't feel good to you, you shouldn't be doing it. It's too hard. And there has to be other rewards around it in order to make that so people don't just jump into leadership, because that's the way up.
I got to tell you, that's my favorite part of the podcast right now. I mean, because you said something that just really resonated. I almost felt guilty when I went home, and I don't want to tell you that I'm a loser, but I don't think this is right for me. But I never questioned my leadership skills, nor did anybody else who ever met me. No problem leading. I always thought they were kind of bundled together, so I didn't like talking about it a whole lot. But it's you're absolutely right. And to me, it's freeing for people to hear that, because, I mean, I couldn't wait to go home and tell my wife and my little children and my parents, guess who became a manager today? Instead, I told them the management program that they went to is over. And guess who decided he doesn't want to be a manager? Everyone wasn't going, oh, joy. There was no joy that day, only with me.
Yeah, it's really hard. And one of the things I talk about in my book is play, and not just play like playing games together, although there is incredible value to that. I am not diminishing that at all. But the second aspect of play that I think in the workplace we need more focus on is that play honed at its highest level is your craft. And there are some people who aren't players with people. That's not their play style. They don't want to do that type of work because it's draining. And Gay Hendricks calls it your zone of genius, that they don't live in that space. And I could go on forever because I'm a culture nerd about why we have that overstory in our culture. And it is, long story short, because we value, like, we have a high power distance that says leaders are better. Leaders aren't better, but that's how we structure things. And it's okay that you don't want to do that. If it doesn't feel like play, if it's not flow when you're working with people, then management is going to be really challenging for you. I was doing an event and this man was kind of like an SVP at an audio company. So they put in audio systems and help at events and things like that. And I was talking about what feels great to them. It's like, my favorite part of my day is helping team members solve problems and then watching them do it on his own. That's a leader. That guy loves, he was great at building systems, but that is a leader. That's his favorite part of your day. That says something about it.
My favorite manager was the one who said very succinctly, almost in a boring tone, my job is to figure out where you want to get to and help you get there.
Yeah.
And I thought, to this day, that's so crystallized, because when a manager walks that walk, which the individual you're describing clearly was not walking that walk, and is not concerned about your success. Am I taking his job or her job? All that stuff, just to figure out, that's why I'm here. I'm here to help you be as successful as you can in the area you want to be, which means we're going to communicate, which means I might be moving you to other program. When they walk that walk, it's the greatest manager you'll ever have, because it's very simple. But the bad ones, they're 180 degrees different. It's all about protecting themselves. Yeah. And it's just a shame that exists. And yet, last thing, I'll move off of it. But when I'm mentoring people, I have to tell them, and maybe you can correct me, but you're not going to have them every time. No. But they're out there. You're going to run into them. There'll be a beginning, middle, and end. And you're going to manage that manager the best you can, but it's just part of life. Yes. I think for every bad one, you get a good one. I'm a half full guy. Okay.
So I think, and that's the reason when I talk about leading yourself first, because if you've got a difficult manager, having lived through a toxic work experience, having coached people through toxic work experiences. My husband has recently come out of one. Learning how to lead yourself so you don't implode completely underneath a bad manager
Right.
is also part of creating joy for yourself, because you cannot control the outcomes. You
Yeah.
just can't.
Right.
But what you can control and manage is yourself. Hardest of all, but yes, you can. And when you learn those steps, you create joy for yourself, even in circumstances that are less than ideal, that we don't want to face. We will never be perfect. As much as I desperately want to have joy as the center of every workplace, as the heartbeat of every organization, I'm never going to get there.
Right.
And I hold those in tension. But when you're in those experiences, if you know how to understand yourself, understand why this is bothering you, and you act with integrity, no matter how they respond, then you will have more joy in your life, even in the difficult parts, because real joy is deep. It has deep roots, and roots form in the dark. And
Right.
that's when you really understand how to have resilience by having joy, by managing yourself.
Hey, when you do, I know you do keynotes. Do you
Mhm.
do workshops on
I
this as
do.
well? Good.
Mhm. Yeah.
Half day, full day. Give me kind of the lay of the land.
Yeah. So always love a good keynote, love a good event opener closer. Those are great. I have several key ones that are perfect for keynotes. I do half day and full day and multiple day options, depending on what your particular needs are. I have a compass called the Joyosity Compass that lists 9 different categories that you need in order to really put joy in the center and actually build it. Because joy isn't like, you got to plant it, it's got to grow. And so what are those things that create it? And so we can do some of those topics over the course of time. I also love working with companies over time. So come in and do like the opening keynote, open of the year, close of the year, whatever, and then spend training time with them over the course of a year and coaching and training those leaders to help them gain the skills outside of that one training experience. So a coaching retainer is another thing that is always really helpful if an organization wants to build real sticky change that actually creates that change over time where they can really see the benefits. So those are some of the options that I have for people.
Yeah. And it's funny. You hear people who oppose virtual deliveries.
Mm.
I don't really believe, and just my thinking here, I don't really believe that you can get the mindset and the culture of a company through a virtual keynote. But I wrote a piece once called Plant the Garden, Tend the Garden. What you're describing is tending to the garden now. We
Yes.
planted the seeds. We were able to get the mind share of that audience. They're on board. And now virtual becomes a very valuable player,
Mhm.
particularly on
Absolutely.
the individual coaching and the team coaching side.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Absolutely.
so they work well together.
They do. And I always suggest to companies, and I've had this experience a few different times with organizations that I've worked with, watching their results side by side, starting off in person. There is
Yeah.
something empowering about an embodied learning experience together that you cannot replicate in a virtual experience. And when you do that embodiment first, even if you do really engaging virtual sessions, you can't recreate that. But if you
Right.
do that first, and then you're maintaining and tending, as you're saying, virtually, and then even coming back together, that's where the research, my experience, but also the research shows us that that is how hybrid and remote work is going to be sustainable over time.
Yeah.
Is that way of coming together, virtual maintaining, coming together. It's so powerful.
Yep, and what we're describing right now is really how a professional speaker should be judged. I use the words "we're protecting the investment." Okay, you
Yes.
made an investment to bring me out here. What do you say we actually implement the ideas that we talk about? So, and sometimes we have to help our clients a little bit because they'll bring you out for a keynote, but then they'll start using the words, yes, your training session is on Tuesday. No, no, not a training session.
No.
It's a keynote. And I'm going to give you the best hour that you
Yeah.
could get on joy. Okay.
Yeah.
And they will walk away with a couple of really good ideas. The
Mhm.
workshops are where we actually change the culture of the organization and we begin to put in real processes and we're working on case studies and small group. And that's why, I'm like my workshops live, but now I'll tend to that garden because now they're out there using our skills, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love to do, I use Slack is my preferred tool, but
Uh-huh.
that way of also being able to communicate between sessions because that meeting comes up, and you're
Right.
like, oh my gosh, I just walked out of that meeting and here's what happened. And I'm having, like, you talked about this in our training, but then I didn't, so now what do I do? And that allows that kind of asynchronous coaching to
Right.
happen and answer questions back and forth from a party who isn't involved in determining your performance review, your salary. Like I can be a really third party observer advocate that also is coaching you to be better in what you're doing. So I love that part of what I get to do with clients when they choose that as one of the options, because it makes such a difference in application, because it's the in the moment kind of nitty gritty stuff.
Yeah. Well, you're bringing me joy in this part of the conversation because, as I'm coming down the home stretch of my career now, and I look back on, 32 years on my own, another 10 with Xerox, over 40 years on the road. The one thing I wish I had learned and focused on more was implementation.
Mm,
We got very good at delivery and wowing audiences and entertaining them and inspiring them and motivating them and teaching them really good things, but we left that garden alone.
yeah.
And that's why I really think when companies realize, I love when you throw out those numbers, 50% here, 30% here, that doing this is going to make you money, not lose you
Yes.
money. Okay. Costs a
Yes.
lot of money to hire and fire and then rehire another individual. Those numbers are big.
Those numbers are huge,
Yeah.
huge,
All right.
anywhere from 150 to 200% of
Oh,
that person's
yeah.
salary.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah. All right. Last question for you, and I could go on all day with you. Uh, but if a leader is listening right now
Mm,
and maybe feels drained and disillusioned, came from a place where mine was so long ago, I'm having trouble remembering it, which is joyous for me.
yeah.
Okay. Like, I don't, there's a part of me that's like, it's just not worth talking, it's over. But what's one thing that you could tell them maybe to do today? Maybe
Mm,
to start today. Let's give them one thing they could implement.
mm.
Well, cherry pick that one for me.
That's really hard not knowing where they are. I'm always wanting to look at the individual. I
They're
think,
lacking joy at
yeah,
work and
yes.
they're feeling powerless.
I think the first thing, an author, his name is Rob, and now I'm not remembering his last name, or Ronald. His name is Ronald. And he says, we get into trouble when we don't name things properly. And so I think for naming it, that this isn't right and it doesn't have to be that way, is incredibly important. And then I have a it's a booklet that you can go through, and it's a joy list. And so if you go to it's jenwhitmer.com/joyosity explorer, so joyosity-explorer, and it helps you walk through what are the things that are bringing me joy and what are the things that are draining my joy.
Mm.
Because until you can name those things, you just feel in the muck. And when you name them, it's like, oh, I can separate, I can find the solid ground to start cleaning up the muck and healing those emotions. But until you name them, it's all too muddied together. And so the Joyosity Explorer map helps you, like, okay, well, what actually does bring me joy?
Right.
Is it spreadsheets? Is it doing numbers? Don't let Jenn Whitmer do that. That does not bring her joy. But if that brings you joy, if what's draining you is this particular person, like, figure that out. Like, oh, it's not the work, it's the person, or it's the process, not the person. What is it? So the Joyosity Explorer map helps you really decide, okay, what is bringing me joy? What brings me joy? What is draining my joy? And then the rest of the pages take you through a process of, well, then now what do I do?
Good.
So, but the naming of it, I think, is powerful. When I actually named that it was toxic, that's when I started to be able to accept that this wasn't a place I could stay.
Yeah. I'll tell
So
you how
naming
important
it
it
is
is. Yeah.
powerful.
I'll tell you how important what you just said is, and from my perspective, because I just recently wrote a piece on this. Our instinct is off on this. There are things that you're talking about naming, even from a different angle, imposter syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
bad word. But we know the name of it, but don't say it out loud,
Mm. Mm-hmm.
and the reality is we need to say it out loud.
Yeah.
You can't be afraid of these words.
No.
I think our instinct is the opposite of what you just described, and
Mm-hmm.
yet you're making complete sense. It's instinct versus logic.
Yeah.
And we have to break that instinct apart a little bit there.
Absolutely.
Name it, say it, call it out. It's
For the
not the
Harry Potter
boogeyman.
fans, for the Harry Potter fans in the room, Voldemort had all the power when people called him he who must not be named. And it's when Harry showed up and called him Voldemort and said, that is your power. So if you can remember that, you get into trouble when you don't name the thing. So name it.
Yeah.
That is the opening door to joy.
I feel a blog coming on, but that's another story. Yes, but you're so right. You're so right. I read the books. I have children, and you're right. It became less scary when we use the words. Okay, outstanding. Tell me the name of the book that's coming out and when is it coming out?
It is coming out October 21st of 2025, 2 days after my 50th birthday, which is very exciting. It's called Joyosity.
Okay.
And you can get in on all of what I'm calling the very important party, the Joyosity Works Very Important Party at jennwhitmer.com/books.
Okay. Now I want you to spell out Jenn, because you rattle that name out so fast.
So Jenn Whitmer, Jenn with 2 N's. So JENNWHIT, M as in Michael, ER, jennwhitmer.com/books. And you can pre-order the book there from several different places. You can get in on the very important party where you get a 5-minute Friday. So I'm sharing parts of the book with one takeaway you can apply in less than 5 minutes. And it's been really fun so far. So if you want to get on the very important party, and then there'll be more things for you there, but the book comes out and you can pre-order now and be a part of really shaping how this message gets out in the world. Because when you join that, it's not just you're buying a book, which yes, I appreciate. All authors would like that, but it is my mission because there are too many toxic workplaces. There are too many leaders who haven't been trained. There are too many. So this book is that manual, that guidebook to how do we actually do this? And you help be a part of that mission. And that's what's really amazing.
Good. Well, your heart's in the right place on this book. As I always say, we don't find a book, it finds us.
Yeah.
And this one definitely found you. And I congratulate you and pre-order that book, everybody, because actually that's important on the Amazon algorithm. So pre-orders are really important. So go get it taken care of, get it done. And then don't forget to put the cherry on the sundae. And once it comes out and you read it, give a nice review on that book. A couple sentences. That's all we need. Jenn Whitmer, who speaks her name so quickly. It has been a joy talking to you. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Really enjoyed it. Exceeded my expectations. And you had me at joy. I'm telling you, I am a guy that really focuses on that. I've always called it Happyville. I'm the mayor of Happyville. Sometimes I have to take trips out of Happyville and take care of business. And people, where's our mayor? But I am fighting my way back to Happyville. Yours is Joyville. Anyway, thrilled to be able to talk to you. Thanks so much for being on this show.
Well, thank you for letting me, and have a pocket-sized time.
You bet. All right. Well, we'll do it again as well as we can next time, everybody. Until then, stay safe.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, please rate and recommend it on iTunes, Outcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more information on this show and Rob at jollis.com.